How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Well, welcome to this week's episode of Headcases. And I have to tell you this, I just had the most amazing conversation with one of the industry's business legends. And I have to tell you, he is, besides being a good friend, he is a salon owner. He has over 170 employees that he has spread across 6 brands. He has been voted best barbershop in America multiple times. He services up to 600 clients a day. He's recognized by Self magazine as one of the top 30 hairdressers in America. He's the former VP and president of Intercoiffure America and Canada. He is a partner and board member of Summit Salon Business Center. He is an internationally sought-after speaker and the co-founder of Strictly Business Seminars. So let's get into this week's Headcase, the business guru, Mr. Frank Gambuzza. Well, Frank, welcome to Headcases. It has been too damn long since you and I have had a chance to talk to one another, but I was so excited when you agreed to come on here, so welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. And yeah, you're right. It seems like if it was only 2 weeks, it'd be too long, because every time we talk, it tends to be very energetic and inspiring. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I will say we're always also there for the comedic value, which I love. So I have to say this. Now, do we call you Mr. Legend now, or is it, do we have to go by Sir Frank or anything?
I think I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, well, it's just so the people watching and listening now that Frank Woolley, who is a photographer, hairdresser, et cetera, out of London, put together, in a different year, put together the North American legends out of the that were British. And he just got finished doing the North American legends in hair. And Mr. Gambuzza, you were on that list. So I have to say, congratulations. It's a pleasure to know you, and believe me, well deserved. So how did it feel when they contacted you about that?
You know, Chris, it's always exciting when you're recognized by your peers. Business, we're in the community, you get recognized because you're doing a lot of fundraising and donations, and it's kind of just a placation to say thanks. But when it's your peers that are having to pick out from thousands of amazing talent, I mean, when I think of the talent that's around this country and the pleasure of people that we've had to share stages with and work with through the past, and if they just recognize your name in that group, it's wow. And again, it's because it's by your peers. So it was very flattering. I have a lot of gratitude that I was recognized for it. And, this is my 53rd year doing this. So, I think sometimes you run the risk of just becoming yesterday's news, right? So it was very flattering, and I'm honored to have been a part of that with such great people.
Yeah, well, congratulations again. I'm just looking at it right now, and you picture you're surrounded by other great people. The barbers from Amsterdam. What's Scrum guys, they're just right around you. You got Laces just around you. There's all these amazing people that are on this sheet and that he put together, and it's phenomenal. I would highly suggest anybody that's listening or watching, if you go on to, I believe it's called Mark Woolley Electric, I think is the name of the site.
Yes.
And if you go on there, you'll be able to see it, and it's just an amazing piece of work. And once again, congratulations. And I know that sometimes it's just really good to have that recognition for everything you put in, and you did put that in. I have go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think hats off go to Mark too. Sometimes you can do that, and you can do things good, and then you could do things great. And I think the level of excellence in which he executed that and the amount of time and effort he put into it, it really made it something special. And it made it somewhat, legacy-like for the industry more so than just us individuals. I think it speaks for the whole industry.
Yeah, which would be darn nice if they would do more of that outside of our industry to let people know, all the greats that are in the industry. And I think sometimes even the students that are going to school, a lot of them nowadays let me rephrase that. What's nice about this is if people can look at it and know that they're their peers and there's the people that they can look up to and know where a lot of the things came from, whether it's hair or business or whatever. So, and I know that you've done both. I mean, you've done that. You've been you were a barber first, then a hairdresser, and now you have successful businesses. You travel the world, talking on business and helping people to be good business people, because it's always nice to have the skill, but it's nice to make money too, and be able to have a good positive experience. But so tell us a little bit, how did your hair story start?
Well, Chris, I started back when I was a freshman in high school. Actually, it was previous to that. I was shining shoes in barbershops. I say barbershops. It was one barbershop in specific. I grew up in a small town in West New York, New Jersey, and I was shining shoes in taverns. And my father wasn't big on me going into the bars to shine shoes and hanging around a bunch of degenerates. So he said, "You got to go find a spot." And he knew a local barber by the name of Giuseppe Vito Lupo, in English, Joe Lupo. Yeah. And I started shining shoes in Joe Lupo's Continental Barbershop. And at the time, it was men's hairstyling. It was barbering was kind of passe and men's hairstyling was in. Yeah. And it was just I fell in love with the atmosphere immediately, not only the staff that I work with, but the clients that come in, and they would come in dressed up in hats and fedoras and cashmere coats, and I got to shine their shoes. But the stories and the environment just was something that I was always excited to go to work. And, I was quite young doing it. But in the inner city, you come from, a family of 5 boys. If you want anything extra, you're going to go out and have to make the money to get it. So I never thought twice. You got to hustle. Yeah, you got to go out and get a job if you want something. So, obviously my father and mom always provided food and clothing and a place to sleep. But at the end of the day, if I wanted, Chuck Taylor Converse back then, I had to go find $9.99. Yeah. So, so I started off in the barbershop, fell in love with the atmosphere, and became a barber first.
Yeah, I think if they didn't believe that you've been in the business for 53 years, when you said $9 for a pair of Converse, they immediately went, "Oh, okay, I get it. That was way back when." I wouldn't even had to get to the 99 cents, right? Just the $9. $9. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, that's amazing. So so you went from there, shining shoes. So what was the transition to hair? What, did you go to barber and then hair, or the other way around?
Well, actually, in New Jersey at the time, there were no barber schools. Oh. So the only way to become a barber is you had to apprentice under a master barber for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And so I talked to the fellow Joe who I worked for, and, he thought I had a real interest in it because I was always watching and asking questions. And I was fascinated by seeing some guy come in with like shabby hair and leaving looking like a well-groomed man. And the thing is, my father was a carpenter. So he built houses. So there was times where he'd take us on a Sunday for a ride to show us the house he's working on. But the thing is, it took a year to a year and a half to see it come to fruition. So if you went once a month, you really didn't notice change. And what I loved about the barbershop was within 30 to 45 minutes, you saw a guy, looking like he might have been jobless to looking like he was the CEO of the company he worked for. Yeah. And that instant gratification and that wow factor kind of grabbed me. I was like, I could see myself doing that.
Yeah.
So I was a barber first. And like I say, I had to serve an apprenticeship. And what the apprenticeship is in New Jersey was then, I'm not sure what it is now. I've moved out of there 40 years ago. But that just gave you the ability to take the barber test for a barber's license. So it was that person, your mentor, if you would, who was responsible for preparing you to be able to pass that test. So, and, I had to do a full shave, and I was practicing on balloons, and I had to do scissor over comb, and, you can only move your thumb. And right. He had me practicing scissor over comb up and down the side of a doorway just to make sure, I wasn't chomping. And, I was able to pass my test. I passed my test at age 16. I was able to take my test at 16. And so I was doing men's hair. But then all of a sudden I was like a junior in high school, and I thought maybe it'd be better to do women's hair than men's hair. My interest shifted.
Yes.
Yeah, so I did what I did is I went to Vidal Sassoon's in London.
Oh,
And they had one in New York, and I took a
yep.
weekend class in New York first. It was a 2-day seminar. It was on 57th Street. It actually eventually became the Paul Mitchell Academy, but this is 1971.
Yeah.
And I took a 2-day seminar in New York, and just a whole nother world.
Yeah.
With watching the way they were doing sections, because with barbering it was basically scissor over comb, grabbing hair, like dragging it, just because most of it was just perimeter cutting. Tapered necklines, clean air. And then the interior part of the haircut was just cutting off some edges because you kept it long.
Yeah.
So when I saw this whole Sassoon thing and breaking down a haircut, and I understood it, I was always fairly good with math and pretty organized. And I just saw the neat approach to being able to get a finished result in advance. Like, they told us what it was going to look like, and then pick the proper techniques and tools and products to get it, and it landed there. And I was like, wow, this is like amazing. So it took my whole thought process to that's hair design. With barbering, we were kind of trained to take hair off,
right?
And then with the Sassoon thing that I saw at first was they were talking about leaving hair on. So it was kind of an adverse approach to getting a finished product. So from the New York Sassoon weekend, then I took off to London for, I think it was a 10-day seminar. It might have been 2 5-day weeks. And it just changed everything for me. I mean, I came home, I threw my clothes out, went shopping, different tools, the whole thing. So so then I started doing women's hair, and then, the Scrum guys, actually, I need to kind of give kudos to those guys, because in 2010, they were kind of on fire over in Rotterdam and getting all this pub. And I said, wait a second, that's my background. I did that, So I said, I'm going to try that out and do it again. And everybody in the industry at the time, another major manufacturer that you and I both know, did some studies, how you can't make money doing men's hair. They kind of told me I was crazy for doing it. And first to market sometimes costs you, because if you're too soon, it's hard to withstand that, right? But the timing was perfect to be first to market. In 2010, we opened up Frank's Barbershop in Knoxville. And I put 7 chairs in. I thought it would be plenty. And 6 months in, we were turning clients away. So we put 7 more chairs in. And today it's a 14-chair barbershop that cranks daily. It just stays packed.
Yeah, because, it's funny, Frank, they always talked about, and I remember that when they were talking about how, I remember when we were doing hair would have been in the 70s, they said that everything was like precision hair cutting, and the high-end salons kept going, the low-end salons kept going, but it kind of ruled out the middle salon, and it also affected greatly the barbershops, because the people the men wanted to go for this precision shape. So like you went and learned precision, how to create these shapes. Then back in when was it like? And actually, you're right. It kind of coasted, and then 2010, everybody's cutting their hair off and they're having bald fades, et cetera. And normally, they always say that a trend will last about 6 years, 2 years in, 2 years hot, 2 years out. But this has lasted, much longer. And I think what would you put that down to? Why do you think that it wasn't just a flash in the pan? Why was it that we're still at this 14 years later, and men's hair is still as popular as ever?
Yeah, I would probably think it's a culmination of 2 pieces to that response, Chris. I think guys did want good haircuts.
Yeah.
But they would come into our salon, or their wife's salon, or their mother's salon, or their girlfriend's salon, and they were coming in like a deer in headlights, like, whoa, what, so to get a good haircut, it was an uncomfortable feeling. Yeah. So I think when we opened the barbershop, it was kind of like our tagline was "Men belong here." So it created kind of a basement-like environment with some sports, some games. We got pool tables and dartboards and whatnot. And I think it just gave them the comfort to be in a place that they were in their friend's basement getting a haircut. So I think they were getting the result they were looking for with a really good haircut without having to go through the pain of sitting in a, quote, unisex upscale salon doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because I think there's also been a change all around in our industry, whether it's you've got a basement environment or a spa-like effect for men, et cetera. It really has changed where it's isolated back, and a lot of men now are really going to, they're going to barber shops that are specific to them. To that point, I just have to remember to the point you were talking about earlier, where you were saying that men went to and had to be a bit uncomfortable. It had to be a bit uncomfortable in order to get the good haircut by going to a salon prior to that. And I had a good friend of mine who was a photographer, and he's Asian. And so he said, Chris, I like my hair and I like it to move off the face. And that's when we used to do off the rod perming. And we'd do it just to get waves in the hair. And I suggested, okay, we're going to perm your hair. And he said, okay, good. As long as you do that, but don't put me anywhere anybody can see me. So I put him over in the dryer area, but I had completely forgotten that on that side, that's where windows were, and people were always parking their cars. And to this day, he still ribs me about the fact that he wanted to be private, and I put him right beside a window, and everybody could see him with perm rods in his hair at a time when it wasn't okay to have perm rods in your hair. So,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think that as stylists, what we thought was ordinary wasn't the right thing for men.
Well, that's a perfect example of, though, and I talk to my staff about this a lot. We all do, the management, is we're so comfortable in our environment, we forget how they feel inside our space, right?
Yeah.
So you were dealing with the inside of your store, and it was away from the crowded dance floor, and it was over in the corner. But at the same time, that's not where they were. That's not their comfort zone. That's yours. Whether it be the music we're listening to, whether it be the temperature we keep a salon at, whether we're walking through because we're preoccupied or we're forgetting to say hello to a new guest. There's really a lesson there for us to realize that we got to behave in their space. We can't expect them to adjust to ours.
Right. And I think that goes to both ways, to men and women, in whatever you're doing, because nowadays it's a shopping experience where the clients are shopping you out. It's what's drawing them in is Instagram and how well you do hair and so on. And because and let's face it, where it used to be when you and I started, there wasn't that many people around that could cut hair systematically and really do a great shape. And you were the standout in the crowd, first to market, as you said.
Right.
But let's face it, most the work that everybody's is doing now, most people can do well. So if you don't do it well and you don't make it a positive experience, as you were saying, something that there's value in what you get besides just having a good haircut. What's the atmosphere, the temperature like in there? And when I say temperature, I don't mean hot or cold, but how do you feel in the room? What's the culture of it? So you feel like you belong,
at the end of the day, the client that's coming to you is probably passing anywhere between 8 to 12 salons from their house to you.
Yep.
Right. So why you?
Yeah.
Why are they coming to us? Because the talent, I mean, you've been on that film. I'm sorry. Am I okay now? I should be back. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you've been on stages all over the world. How many hairdressers you train? Belinda been on stages. I've been on stages. Sam's been on. You got all these people that have been on stages. I mean, we had to wait till information came from European fashion shows back in the day to New York. And then from New York, I had to wait, to get it to Middle America. It took months to get it. Now there's something going on tonight in Milano. Tomorrow morning, everybody's got it on their phone.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
that you're not going to beat the competition by just doing great hair anymore. You got to have you got to be hitting on all cylinders.
Right. And I think you have to have a great leader within the organization, and that there's always that old saying is, do you want to be a part of a great salon, or do you want to be a part of where you can be your own leader in it, but you've got the symphony conductor. You can be great at what you do, but somebody's got to lead the band. Yeah. And that's why I think that I remember being at your salon, and I did a couple of gigs at Salon Visage, and I remember that I did a 2-day booking at your place, and I was struck right away that your place was different culturally than most places that I'd ever been to. And where it really stuck out to me is that I think we did on the first day, I can't remember if it was the first day or both days. And I said, well, so what do you guys want to do? What do you want me to teach? And you just said, I want you to work with my staff. Just walk around with the staff. And then if they have a problem, I want them to bring it up to you, et cetera. And quite frankly, that scared the bejesus out of me because I wasn't just doing what I was familiar with, but the reality was it was fun, and you had this camaraderie with all the other people there that if they had a problem, they'd call you over. And the culture that you had, the client wasn't upset. So many people would say,
very much we have that culture. It's definitely, I mean, I don't want to call it a teaching salon, like, hospitals call themselves teaching hospitals, but education and help from each other. And it has to be, you got to have the ability to go to somebody who might know a little bit better in certain scenarios. And because if your ego gets in the way, you're never going to learn it, and the client's not going to come back. So nobody wins.
Yeah.
Nobody wins. But I remember you being down here. That's a while back. And
that was I'd say more than 2 years ago. We'll just leave it at that.
Chuck Taylor's were maybe $11.99 by then.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember one kid in particular, and I don't remember his name, but I remember based on that you said walk around and help people with the problems that they're having, and he had a young man that was in his chair, and the hair was medium wavy to almost curly, and he always wore it in that sort of college haircut look. It was just down and forward. And the guy said, I want to get texture in my hair, because that's in the times when everybody had texture in the hair. And I remember the stylist that I was working with, he says, I've tried everything on his hair and I just can't get it to get texture. And so I said, well, have you ever tried anything where you're just cutting into it, much like you would if you looked at a pineapple and you saw the way that the V's were cut into it, and you cut it almost to the scalp, but you did these V's in the shape. And I just remember after that, it scared the bejesus out of him. But I went in with the first few and I just cut these V's. So it didn't go to the scalp, but it gave these V-shaped sections in it. So if he just ran his fingers through the hair, it would give texture. But if he put product in, he actually could get hairs that had some texture inside it. And he did the rest of the haircut and blew me away, because he just went, okay, I'm in there like swimwear. So it was just an awesome experience.
So if you did that with him, I'm sure you did something with the person to his left, something to the person to his right. Yeah. That became their seminar, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times when we bring people in, they give us their seminar, and, it might be great for 50% of the room, but the other 50 may have missed it, right? Yeah. I think what happens with that kind of one-on-one thing, and when the atmosphere breeds education, they're not insecure to ask. And I think what happens is you took that kid to the next level that day, right? And I think that's what people miss with online learning to an extent. I mean, I love the online learning for 66% of it, but I still think you got to get in there for that other third and screw up the pineapple sometimes,
Yeah, and I think, and this is certainly an opinion. It's not written down anywhere, but I do feel because I was I don't say a Sassooner that I worked for them, but I was a Sassoon freak like you were. But everything was based around cutting the hair to do something, and you just weren't afraid. You just weren't afraid to do something because you knew the results you were going to get. And if that's what they want, you did it. And if the technique was different, so what? You just did it. So, cutting V's in the hair at that time to me was normal. But to other people who have never done it before, and you're worried about your clients and are they going to come back, it can compound it unless you have that confidence and that strength within in order to do what's just right when it comes to a haircut.
Yeah. And it don't happen overnight, right? That's
Yeah.
why, I mean, you gotta constantly wear the hat of a student. I mean, we look, I was in Dallas last weekend at BarberCon.
Yeah.
I'm there with like 21-year-old barbers that have been doing hair for like 9 days. I'm here 53, and I'm watching them like a hawk, saying,
Yeah.
because they were fearless.
Yeah.
They were fearless. So I left there energized. I left there excited. So we just all have so much to offer each other that, we can't think of it as like kind of hierarchy as much as, just freedom to learn.
Yeah. And I think you hit on a good point there that I really loved, because that kid that was at BarberCon was 23 years old, but that same 23-year-old kid that's at BarberCon is in a salon, a barbershop, and he's doing cool stuff. And that he could be sitting next door to a senior person who doesn't have that energy yet. And that's what I think is so important for right now, whether you're in a salon or a barbershop or wherever, is remember these kids are out there that they can do some cool shit on the hair. And they're not, and
Absolutely.
They're fearless, and I think that, sometimes as we work our way through the business, and if we're worried about money, we're worried about a client leaving, and then you tend to let your guard down and you're not doing what you needed to do. What's right that I need to do on this head of hair? It's their right to say no, but we have to tell them what that is. And I think that's come just from consultations and confidence in you.
You say that about the young kid. Years ago, I've had the great pleasure of touring Australia 3 times in all capital cities teaching. And it was more business management than it was hairdressing. Mm-hmm. So I can remember being in Melbourne one night, and there was an older gentleman in the back of the room. The place was packed. There was probably 1,000 people, standing room only, and talking business, and most of it resonated, right? Business principles are business principles, so there might be different taxation issues, whether it's US or Canada. There might be different belief systems in whether you should have a small store or a larger store. But I saw this guy nodding at things to the point where I said, man, who is that guy? So by the end of it, everybody's saying hello, taking pictures, whatever. So I said, I want to meet that guy over there. So somebody brought him over. Come to find out, he owned a chain of hair salons, and he owned a chain of restaurants. Very successful guy. And he asked me if I had dinner plans. I said I didn't. So he took me to dinner in one of his restaurants. So we had a conversation just like you and I are having, just off the cuff, hopefully inspiring somebody with something we say or something we've done. And this guy, somewhere along the night, he says, you need 3 things to be successful. Because I was asking him as many questions he was asking me, right? Because I love to use those opportunities to learn. So he said, you need 3 things. He said, number 1, you need proper financing. Number 2, you need experience. He said, but number 3, you need enthusiasm, and that comes from the new hires.
Wow.
So what you're saying right there is that, because I think a lot of times there's this belief that, hey, we've been here 30 years, we're market leaders, we're best in class, you're lucky to work here. No, we're lucky to have them.
Yeah.
You got somebody who's a leader in their class. Right now we're putting more time in recruiting, I think, than we are into any one thing. We've turned into a recruiting machine.
Yeah. That's amazing. It just sparked something in my mind about, because to me that you're recruiting and you're getting gold into your salon, because that's what making it work. And I'm sure you probably remember. You remember Don Matlack, Don and Lonnie?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Don was telling me that he was at a motivational seminar, business seminar, etc. And come on, what was his name? Peter Vidmar. Peter Vidmar was I think 1984. He was the Olympic gymnast. He won 2 golds and a silver. And he was up there doing the speaking, and they went to a coffee break, and Don saddled up beside him, and he said to him, what's it like to win 2 gold and a silver? And Peter looked back at him and he said, Don, you don't win silver, you lose gold. And I think that's what relates so definitely to nowadays, or sometimes that people in search for one thing that they really do want, but they hold back, and then they don't get what they truly want. And I think when you have a business environment, because I understand you still do hair occasionally. Yes, you just said beforehand you were out doing the football coach's hair.
I did some haircuts today. Yeah.
Yeah. But the so many people out there they think, here's my shingle on the door. And I know you have Gambuzzas out there, and you have Salon Visage out there, etc. And that's part of branding. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you put your name about there, and then you think all it is about that name, and you've got to be the best, and you've got to be the person, the go-to guy. And I have to fall into that, because I think even 100 years ago in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, when I came back from Sassoon's and then went and opened my own salon, it was called Herr Baran, as in Mr. Baran in German. And I thought I was the shit. I thought it was just, I had to be the guy to go to. It was, my name that was up there. Everybody else that I trained was my people, my apprentices. And you learn out real quickly that kind of mentality doesn't work, as opposed to teaching and helping and mentoring. And I think that when I got that in my head, I think everything kind of turned around for me. How do you feel about that? Like within your business, about how you get from people to get them from one place and moving them higher up and higher up, so they make more money?
Chris, in fairness to you, though, I think back then that was kind of the model.
Yeah.
People were putting their name on it, and that was kind of the star, and then everybody else was kind of the supporting cast. Yeah. I think that was kind of the way it was back then. For me, I never wanted my name on it, because at the end of the day, what it tells me is they may want you to be the one that does the hair. You can't do volume that way, right?
Right.
But I think it depends on where you are in your career, too. You say you learned it because you went through the learning curve to know that we learn what's not working more than we know what to do, right? So when you've been in it long enough, you start realizing, I think the age gap has to get great enough, because when we first opened, all our employees were our age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not really a mentor. Even if you're the better hairdresser, you're not really a mentor, because they're not open to really taking advice from somebody their age. So what happens, if you're in it long enough, there's 3 really stages of business that I think all of us go through. And the first one we're talking about, when you first opened, that you were Baran and that kind of thing, and you were it's survival mode. We're learning how to survive in business. But then we go into that next S, which is number 2, and that's success mode. We start doing well, and we start making money, and we start like paying our bills. But the third one is what we're all striving for, and that's sustainability.
Yeah.
And in the sustainability mode, I think the owner or the leader is to realize that the leader works for the staff.
Yeah.
I think prior to that, we think that they're working for us, right? But true leadership is us working for the staff. And if we can do that, then we become the king and queen maker instead of being the king or queen.
Yeah.
When you can shift to being, hey, my responsibility daily when I go in is to make kings and queens here. What can I do to make you better? How can I coach you?
Yeah.
And how can I, instead of chewing you out if you're doing something wrong, why don't I put my arm around you and kind of coach you and hug you the most when you deserve it the least?
Wow.
I think that's what breeds that kind of environment of people wanting to play for you.
Wow, that's profound. Hug them the most when they need it the least. No,
when they deserve it the least.
When they deserve it the least.
Typically we pounce on somebody when they screw up or doing something that might be right for your culture. You put your arm around a man and say, hey, look, that doesn't work. Here's why. Yeah. And I think when you give the why, people don't even have to agree with it, but I think they'll support you and respect it.
Yeah. I want to just throw something out there. Could be a little controversial. You might say, let's cut that out. But there's always this stigma. I'm sure, and I'm going to throw this out this way. I'm sure that as many people as you've trained and as many people have been in your salon, and as great as you've made them, You made kings and queens. Some of them have left,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
went on and they went on. So I just want to talk about tell me what you think about that is then when there's so many people out there say, well, if you train them, then they leave and they start their own business. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I think there's only one thing worse than training them and then leaving is not training them and them staying.
Yeah.
Right. Because then your product is kaput.
Yeah.
So no, I would never say let's not talk about it because I think it's always the 800-pound gorilla in the room that we should talk about.
Yeah.
Right. It really depends. Number one, I think it has to do with why they leave. The first question we ask ourselves as managers, and Belinda and I as the owner, and we talk to our staff, the first question we do when somebody puts it, have we done everything we can to set them up to succeed?
Yeah.
Or is
and
this on us?
That's a personal question that like you would ask yourself. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We ask each other.
Yeah.
Every Friday afternoon, we do a management meeting. Yeah. That's a question we got to say, wait a second. Why are they leaving? Right.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it goes awry. Sometimes they've just been there too long. Sometimes, you didn't give them a day off that they wanted. I mean, is it fair to say we're in a business that's more emotionally based than it is anything else?
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
So I tell you, there's times we've probably not led people properly where them leaving was probably understandable, but after the fact. I look back and that's kind of where you learn your mistakes, right?
Yeah.
I think the one thing that has to be dealt with in today's day and age is understanding that everything has to be treated urgently. If somebody says, hey, can I talk to you? It's not next week.
Yeah.
It's today. Something's up, right? What's the speed to rectification? There's a speed to that. And so, yeah, it hurts when they leave, man, right? But the thing is, we're going to keep training them. In 1996, Vidal Sassoon was at the Waldorf Astoria at Intercoiffure, had a world congress. And I was sitting at the table next to him. And I asked him a question. I said, Vidal, I'm a young business owner. I said, I was only in business now 11 years. We opened in 85 and a half. This was 1996. So I said, what should I know as a young guy? He said, always keep your stables packed with young talent.
Yeah.
And I told this story in Mexico one time and they translated it and they thought I was talking about horses when I said stables. So everything don't translate. But his point was keep the youth in there, keep training them. And if you're going to lose them, sometimes it's better to lose them off the top.
Yeah.
It hurts the most because they're major revenue generators. But typically, once somebody's a major generator for revenue for you, the way the compensation is packaged and the way that any extras that you have in a compensation package, there's not a whole lot of money left over, right? So we got to constantly know that we're in the game, we're present, and we're not going away. So when somebody leaves, I mean, there's times where people have to justify how to go, so you got to become a bad guy. I mean, you were their best friend for 12 years, and all of a sudden you're the biggest jerk that ever lived, just so they could justify doing the right thing.
Right.
If they're leaving for something that makes sense, but then they try to recruit 90 people with them.
Yeah.
So it gets sour. Gets sour. So it's never easy. It never hurts less.
Yeah.
When you don't get used to it.
Yeah. I think there's any business owner that hasn't gone through a walkout or 3 or 4 people leaving or whatever is either really, really, should genuflect in front of them or lying. Because, here's the reality that because it's easier for me to talk about it now because I'm not in the salon anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the more that I sit back from the outside looking in and I go, well, I left and I left on good terms. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But the point is that everybody's going to leave. They're either going to start their own business, they're going to move away, they're going to retire, or they're going to die. But everybody's going to leave. Everybody's going to leave. It's just that, I loved what you said about is they feel they have to make you the jerk in order to get their conscience in a place where they can leave. I'm not saying that about everybody, but I'm saying
but
sometimes that's our
it's not
brain
everybody.
just saying,
Yeah, yeah, and Belinda has always said it too. She says, "Look, I'm not gonna blame you for leaving because I left." She
yeah,
said the same thing you just did,
yeah,
but it's how you do it. Because you
yeah,
did the first thing you followed that up with, but I left properly.
yeah, yeah. I
You
would,
left the right way.
yeah. I was just talking to a lady just 2 days ago, and I'd just been in to do a program with her for her staff. And then she she sent me this long text, and I went, "Uh-oh, what's going on?" And she said her two of her people that I trained, she just found out that that they were leaving, and so they had the departing conversation. And she said she had found out about it from other people, which is the worst thing to happen. And so she, based on that, she let them go immediately. And they said to her, we were just sort of biding our time just to know how to do this properly. And we know that we're still only like a week and a half away from when we're leaving right now, but we just didn't know how to do it. So it'd be interesting just to fess up, just talk to one another like the human being that you were before, and just say, listen.
I think to me, that sounds like an excuse.
Yeah.
Because, you what you're saying is I didn't know how to do it until my ducks were 100% in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had it where we found out like that and asked them to leave on the spot. We've had it where they've come to us and say, listen, I'm going to do it. I have not even found the place yet. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I just wanted to be the one to tell you.
Yeah.
And we let them know you can stay right up here until the day you open.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all on how it gets handled. But, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Just do the right thing, because where it hurts the most is you've been to their wedding, you've been to their kid's christening, you've been to their parents' funeral. You helped them buy their first car. You gave them an interest-free loan, and they still owe you money. You put all that stuff together, and it's like, hey man, just say, look, I'm wanting to go try my own thing.
Yeah.
It's you can't fault somebody for doing that, but you can fault them for doing it the wrong way, and that's when it hurts.
Yeah.
And then you find out the whole staff knew it. You were the only one that didn't.
Yeah. 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 The typical mushroom thing again, where they were, left in the dart and feeding you BS. But I wanted to bring that up because I think in business, which is what you're an expert on, that is just a part of our business. And I think that usually I can only speak for myself, and is that what I found was most people will try to get their chairs full, and then they've got no room to put anybody, because if you've got a good place, they're not. There's no place for them to go, and if they see that all the chairs are full, what the heck do I do now? Excuse me, am I going to be an apprentice or an associate for the rest of my life here? There's got to be a plan for them, and I think that what I liked about what you were saying is always have your place. Having a lot of young talent that's in there and a place for them to go. I want to just go through that. How did that work? Because you started off with one barbershop, and then you had to build on more. Is that what I thought I heard you say? You had the barbershop, you had to put in more chairs. How did you make it so that all of a sudden you went to you had other locations, but yet the other location weren't, what's the word? Cannibalizing your clientele, and you were just doing the same volume with more spaces and more expenses. This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show.
Well, that's a great question, Chris, because I've seen a lot of people do it for different reasons, and there's some reasons better than others. But me personally, as a company leader, and the way we do it is we don't ever open another location or stretch hours or anything unless we're forced to do it. So we call it forced growth.
Got it.
So when you say not to cannibalize, when you're forced growth, you want to capitalize a certain percentage to give you a base at the new location. So not only do you want to cannibalize some clients, you also want to cannibalize some staff.
Got it.
So this way your culture becomes a little bit more interdependent, and you're not having two completely different vibes going on within the same company. So typically the data lets you know to do that. All right. Number one, you got to be at least 75% booked on a regular basis. And that's downtimes, uptimes across the board. Because people say, we're packed, we're 100% busy. Most shops I see are maybe 65, 70% at most. Yep. So you want to, and again, that's just an opinion too. There's no exact formula, but you want to be busy enough to know that if you lose 10 or 15% of your people, you're still doing well, because then you refill that as also.
Yeah.
Right. But also, zip code checks are really a big piece to that. We got to know that, like a perfect example, we opened our second barbershop only 2 miles from the first, which is kind of a no-no. Yeah, because you're going to cannibalize. But we were turning away 36 people a day at the first one. And we had about 33% of our clients coming from a zip code that was further west.
Wow.
So we knew if we went further west, but not too far, we'd then have clients that would either share both, or the ones that were further west would make that their new home. So it's very strategic. But the one thing that's not negotiable is that it has to be forced growth, and not just because you want to. For the very reason that you asked that question is, why would you increase overhead and possibly not increase revenue?
Yeah.
The best financial lesson I've ever learned that had to do with money and formulas, it was brilliant. And it's very, very rudimentary. There's only 100 pennies in a dollar. So at the end of the day, do you want to make 8%? You want to make 10%? You want to make 12%? What do you as an owner feel like your return on investment should be? And then I use a formula called reverse bottom line. And how we open a new store is the reverse bottom line might be that we're going to take 5% of this business from day one. We're going to have to run this business on 95 cents out of a dollar, because I'm not going to wait 3 years to make money.
Right.
All right. So now, first year comes in at 5%. All right. We might go to 8% forced profit. And when I say forced profit, it's the first bill we pay before labor, before taxes, before insurance. Because most people wait till the end of the year to see if there's anything left over.
Yeah.
And that's letting the business run you. That's not you running your business.
Right. Yeah. That's a little bit of the profit first model, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pay yourself first. You've got to, so many people wait till there's no money left and then say, hey, I've got nothing left for me. Is it take the money out from you first?
Michael Cole has the best line ever. Too much month left at the end of the money.
Exactly. Yeah, that's and when you were talking about that, and you were saying about how you move staff over, et cetera. The two things that I wrote down here is that you needed. Number one is database, because if you said that you were in, you take a look at where people were living, you had to have a database to do that. So there's so many people that come in and they don't keep records of addresses of where people are, how to get a hold of them, et cetera. At least we're like 100 years ago, and I'm hoping that everybody does now. And the second part that I got out of that was, if you've got your staff is 100% booked at your first location, you can pick amongst there for your managerial position for your other location. So could have a prime person that could be your manager or a leader at the other salon.
Yeah, and you definitely want to do that. We definitely elevate from within, and even if they don't have all the knowledge, they have the culture.
Right.
And the one thing I've learned heavily is that in the absence of culture, you have culture. It's just not a desired one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the culture piece can outweigh pretty much most mistakes. At the end of the day, it's who are we? The definition of culture is really simple for us. It's how we do things here.
Right.
There's no true definition, right? So there's 19 different ways to do it, but here's how we do things here.
Yeah.
And it's really akin to, I'll go to hair shows, and just like last weekend, I heard people blabbering, you don't want clients to come back before 8 weeks. And I'm hearing these things on stage and I'm cringing, because this is like maybe a young hipster that's doing a good job somewhere, but it's not a business model, and yet they're speaking these business terms, so it gets a little scary. So, but in our case, we make it really simple whenever we're talking about culture. A friend of mine has a vegetarian restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And people have told him, hey, man, my husband would come if you put a hamburger on the menu. Well, wait, then we wouldn't be a vegetarian restaurant, would we?
Right.
Right. So, yeah, it might sound like a novel idea to expand your business, but then all of a sudden you're diluting down your purpose and who you are. So I think you got to identify, who you are, why you do it, and who we want to be when we grow up as a company.
Yeah. And I love what you said about how you've got identified who you are. One of the ways I heard a culture was explained was that, number one, that you have to have the same values and belief system, or you have to have values. In other words, and then you have to same the belief, and you have to have a similar language in what you teach. So in other words, we can't all get along if you speak only French and I speak only English. So everybody has to have a similar language, and then there has to be rules. There has to be and the rules are different than what would happen in your policies and procedures. I think that the rules is how you agree to get along with one another. I think that's where one of the critical parts of what most places don't have. So
yeah, and the thing is, what are you what are you going to allow to take place? If you permit it, you promote it, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what is there going to be a consequence when something goes wrong?
Right.
And, back to what we said before, you hug them the most when they deserve it the least, but that don't mean if they keep doing it, you keep hugging them.
Exactly.
I mean, at some point you got to say enough's enough, because I think it all starts at the interview, though.
Yeah.
It's expectations, because I think behavior always follows expectations and it lags behind it.
Yeah.
So we got to make crystal clear what our expectations are to get the behavior. So the first question we ask in an interview is really, really simple. Do you want to be like us?
Right.
Because if not, then we don't need to go any further here.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to be a hipster that's like wearing, ripped Armani jeans versus somebody who's wearing an Armani suit? Or that's up to you. You can be an individual.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, these are the rules, right? And, you can't be a soccer player and say, I don't like the rules. I like American football rules better. Then go play American football.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And that's dead true. That's dead true. So, is there along the way, I mean, we've been talking about it all along here, is that, was there along your way in getting this, and if somebody is out there listening to and they wanted to start a business, or whether it's the first, second, or third business, is there business failures, mistakes, or traps that you've had along the way that you would talk about, to say that in other words, these are things that happen, and if you can avoid these, then it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for you?
Yeah, I think the number one rule is don't confuse touching money with making money.
Oh, give us a little more on that.
Okay, so, I talked about the 3 stages before of business, the 3 S's.
Yep.
Survival, whatever you're taking in, you're paying, you're getting out. You just hope you have enough to make payroll, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you start doing a little bit better. Money starts rolling in, and you think you paid your bills and there's money left over. It's not yours.
Right.
All right. I see salon owners that making their personal car payment out of it. If it's on a company car, they're paying their dry cleaning. They're going out to eat every night and charging it back to the business. There's three people have to make money in the business. there's this misnomer in the industry that it's the owner and the employee that has to make money. That's not true.
Yeah.
The owner has to make money. The employee has to make money, but the business has to make money. And if you miss the business piece, I mean, you're going to just be Hail Mary in every payroll, hoping there's enough left over.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden your roof caves in if you own the building, or, something happens to your business where your toilet bowl's backed up and you don't want to call a plumber because you're not sure you got the money to pay them. You got to pay the business, man.
Yeah.
And that's separate from pulling the forced bottom line money out.
Yeah.
All right. So you got to run tight. I heard a saying just recently, your first 5 years in business, you don't make money. You just learn to get good.
Right.
So I would tell that young person, is save as much as you can, man. Don't be buying four ply toilet paper. Buy the rough stuff.
Yeah.
Don't use fresh flowers every Monday. They got these fragrance machines that they want it to be like the Hotel One because it's cool. Don't look cool getting away of going bankrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard I can't remember who told me this story, but I've related it a few times. They said that business is like, imagine you were in the desert and you wanted to make a trip across the desert, and there was you, another person, and the camel, and that would equate to that would be your metaphor for you doing business. You're the owner, you have staff, and then you have the business, and the money is the water that you have to get across the desert with. And in order to do that, each person has to ride the camel. In other words, have a good time getting some rest riding the camel. Everybody has to walk, so you're not killing the camel by everybody taking all the weight on the camel. And each of you has to be able to drink from the water, including the camel. So to me, that really represents just what you were talking about, how, there's three entities there. It's not just you and your staff. The business has got to make money too, because you're the owner. You need to get paid for it, but you're a shareholder. So you need to make money out of that from the shares as well that you would. Otherwise, you might as well just be an owner yourself. I mean, you might as well be just staff.
Yeah, or be a day trader and just chance.
Yeah.
Take the $200,000 or $300,000 it took to open the store.
Yeah,
and you might do better off.
Yeah.
But I love this analogy that you talk about. Is that written down anywhere, Chris, or is
I don't remember who told it to me.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But that was to me a metaphor that I always said to the staff when we had staff meetings, is that, you might think that there was all this money, but there's really not. And Rita, she is to me like Belinda is to you, and she would have people come in and write out all the checks that she had to pay, and they would be astounded at the amount of checks that were out there. And I would go up to the staff and I would take a dollar bill, and then we would have all the percentages of whatever it costs. He said, well, how much there's rent? How much rent do you need to do? And I'm sure you've heard this before. And if it's 50%, you rip it off in half, and then you take all the chunks away until you're left with, like maybe 2 or 3 little morsels left of the dollar bill. And you'd say, that's how much money we're making here. So don't think that all of this is going in our pocket, because you've got to pay the camel. You've got to pay the business itself.
Sure. Chris, I've used that metaphor, but I asked them at the end with that little morsel, when they're holding the 50% piece in their hand, I say, you want to trade?
Yeah. Yeah, you got 50 points here. I get this. Yeah. You want to trade?
You get 2.3.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. Hey, listen, it's along the road. I know you've been on the road a long time, as have I, and I know that the times have sort of shifted of what you're allowed to do on the road. And I know that when we're on the road all the time, we used to prank. And I have to say this one story. Do you remember we were in, I don't remember the city, and somehow during the program, whether we were doing, I don't remember what we were doing, giveaways, we had something to do on stage.
Chris, we were in Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh, and we, being friends, we were taking the piss out of one another on stage. And then it got back to us that people in the audience thought that we were pissed at one another. We didn't like one another. And so I can't remember if we ever did have to clear that up or what happened, but that always just, it just makes me laugh whenever I think that happens, when you can have so much fun with the people.
That was just a sign that we were good friends. I think I had a really good tan, and you called me like George Hamilton or something. And then I said I didn't know Santa Claus did hair shows because you had a big beard.
Yeah. Oh, that's so much fun. But the funniest thing, that was what hair shows used to be all the time. I mean, you did your gig, and you make sure that everybody got the learning part and so on. But the best part for me was always after, go to the bar and share war stories, things that worked, that didn't work. Like if there was road warrior stories that were out there. Do you remember any? I don't know if you used to prank or anything were on your road or got pranked by somebody. Is there anything that comes to your brain about road warrior stories that come down for you, that unusual things that happen, pranks or whatever?
Chris, I was the guy that, like, when everybody was going to the bar, I said, I'm going to my room. Belinda and I have 5 children. So when we were on the road, we took it as an opportunity to just kind of chill.
Enough said. Enough said. Yeah, wine was served in the room. I love it. Listen, my friend, this has been a pleasure. So listen, just before we're hitting to that rapid fire segment, but just before we do, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Frank, and wanted you to come in to teach or to give business advice, et cetera, to hire you at some place, where should they go to get a hold of you?
Chris, my email is the best way to get a hold of me because it goes straight to my assistant and she gets it straight to me. It's frank@salonvisage.com.
Got it. Frank@salonvisage, VISAGE.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. First name only. And, if something was said on this podcast that triggered somebody, or, sometimes you're speaking to, it's like you go to church on Sunday and say, man, he's talking straight to me, right?
Yeah.
So if something here is hitting somebody that's maybe up at night with certain issues that we touched on, just shoot me an email, man. I've had so much advice and just so much given to us, Belinda and I have, in business and people just being there for us. So we owe that back. So whatever we can do in return, just know that, just being your friend and being on your podcast, we owe it to the next generation because it's certainly been given to us.
Yeah, I love it. And those are great words. So time for rapid fire here.
Right. I'm nervous. You're making me nervous, Chris.
Oh, no, listen, it's just, whatever the first stuff that comes to your brain. Okay. Things in life that you love the most.
Things in life I love the most. I love my job. Obviously, my family. Right now, I'd have to say grandkids are at the top of the list. But I love the sun rising in the morning and just watching another opportunity at another day. It's the sun goes down and comes back up, gives us another chance. So I never take it for granted.
Yeah, I did see your post with you and your grandson. I was assuming swapping glasses out, which I thought was hilarious.
Oh God, he thinks that's that's big fun.
In life, what is it you dislike the most?
I dislike negativity. I dislike people like that. Complaining would probably be my number one thing. There's so much not to complain about.
Yeah.
And I think things have just went awry with, it's just okay to say whatever you want to say at people's expense. I just think we need to sort of get back to the roots of, treating people the way we want to be treated instead of just thinking that there's no guidelines or there's no parameters.
Yeah.
So negativity and just people whining when they really, I just got back from China, Korea, and Japan. And, I was with great people. It was absolutely amazing. But when you see that they don't even have the freedom that we have, and these people are fabulous people, it's a government issue. And you realize how much we take for granted. So what I don't like is when somebody takes something for granted either.
Yeah. regarding our industry, what do you love the most?
People,
Hmm.
people, clients, staff, young, old, black, white, just people, man. When I think of the opportunities we've had in life, places we've got to go, people we've got to meet, things we've got to see, and the relationships we have, I wouldn't trade it for that. Man, if somebody told me, we'll make you a heart surgeon, you work 1 day a week, I'll pay you $1 million a year instead of dressing hair, I'd say keep it.
Yeah, no, you can have that. I'm with you 100%.
People, man.
And regarding our industry, what do you dislike the most?
The lack of respect that it doesn't get. And I blame it on the fact that there's not true standards, there's not true terminology. It's a little bit too easy to get into and too easy to kind of just play in.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 types of hairdressers for the most part, and you got some that want to do it for a job, some that want to do it for a hobby, and some that want to do it for a career. Yeah. I feel like there's a major separation, and we all get clumped into one group, and that bothers me, and I try to fight that all the time.
Yeah, and I think what bugs me the most too is sometimes Hollywood's impression of the way they perceive us on film some of the time. So another story for another time.
Yeah.
Person you admire the most?
Paul, who used to be Saul in the Old Testament.
Oh. Tell us a bit more.
Obviously he was Jewish, became Christian, did so much for Christianity, but had the gall. It's funny, his name was Paul and Saul.
Saul with gall.
But he had the gall to speak the good word, and wasn't afraid of death, wasn't afraid of torture, wasn't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
He just knew the good news needed to be shared. And to me, he's the one I admire the most.
Love it. Your most prized possession?
Wow. Most prized possession. Things, or could it be people?
Yeah, if it's a possession, whatever you perceive that as.
Yeah. My heritage. It's not really a possession, but it's probably the biggest thing that makes me proud on a daily basis is when my grandfather came from Sicily as a 17-year-old boy, alone, and had to separate from his brother at the port. And his brother went to Argentina, and his parents let him come to Italy to have a better life. I mean, from Italy to America.
Yeah.
And, he was the same namesake as me, Frank.
Wow.
And they always tell me I was most like my grandfather. So that's the piece that, just makes me smile to think that's in my blood.
Love it. Love it. The person you wish you could meet?
Paul.
What's something that people don't know about you?
What they don't know about me.
Yeah, something that they would never know that you could do that, did it, or whatever.
Okay. I remember having we went around a room one time, and I remember I was ice skating for about a week in New Jersey, and I woke up one Saturday morning really early, and my fellow says, "Where you going so early?" I said, "I'm going to an ice skating race competition." He says, "What are you doing that for? You've just been skating a week." I said, "I think I can win." He said, "Ain't no way you can win, but go give it your best shot." I came home 2 hours later, won first place.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's people don't think of me as an ice skater, but I didn't do it that long.
Yeah, well, it's like they say, if you think you can't, you won't, and if you think you can, you will. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I think is the way it was said. That was the proper one. If you had a month off, where would you go and what would you do?
I'd go to Sicily. I took a month off last summer. Spent 44 days in Sicily. Boy, it's hot, but again, back to the roots and understanding the lifestyle of the Sicilian and the heritage and occupations of the island. And I really got this thing right now. I'm applying for dual citizenship, and I think America's fascinating with the people and the ethnicity and the religions and the skin colors. And I'm just at a place in life where I just want to know more about kind of like great grandfathers and who am I, where did I come from, and that kind of thing. I feel comfortable with who I am now, so I'm wanting to know how it got to be that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Favorite curse word?
Starts with an F.
Ah, there you go. I know fuchsia is the word that I use a lot as well.
And it's not Frank.
Yeah, it's not Frank. What's your favorite comfort food?
Lasagna.
You and Rita would get along. That's Rita's go-to.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's her go-to all the time.
If it's on the menu, I don't care if I'm in like a Chinese restaurant in like Idaho, I'd get it.
Yeah.
With lower expectations, but I'd do it.
Yeah, something in the industry that you haven't done, but you want to.
Something I haven't done that I want to.
That's going to be a toughie for you.
That's a toughie, man. Something I haven't done that I want to. Chris, I got to pass.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, because believe me, I think everybody that heard your intro, they'll get why. If you could have one, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you had one do-over in your life, what would it be?
I'm going to be bold on this one. Belinda's my second marriage, who I adore from here to heaven. My first marriage failed, and I realized that I was just too young and didn't know what it took to be a good spouse. I was just too young. I thought it was supposed to be easy. And I look back now and I say, you know what? If I would have just put the effort in to anything, I failed, right? Yeah. But when I look at, I would treat a business situation, I would make sure I would do everything it took not to fail. And I didn't do that in my first marriage. So I kind of regret that.
Wow. Bold. Very bold. Tomorrow you couldn't have anything to do with hair. What would you do? I
would drive an Uber.
Aha. That's a first. I've never got that one before. That's awesome.
I've had the best conversations with Uber drivers around the country. And, you get some that tell great stories and they're fun and they make your experience and it's quick hit in and out. And I have some that kind of ruin my night by not being able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd want to do. I'd want to drive an Uber. That's probably cool. What I want to do when I retire.
I love it. And okay, if you had one wish for our industry, what would it be?
I would like to see it become more professional. I think it used to be more professional. And I will say this, I think since COVID, it's kind of went the wrong way as far as appearance, as far as maybe not taking the craft as serious, just lacking joy. Talked before about pranking and all that. I think it's just gotten a little mundane right now. And I say that because I'm talking to salon owners all over the country and we're sharing similar situations, I look at our new dress code and the staff loves it. And I think it looks like crap.
Yeah.
I mean, but I guess, you got to know where that line is of, what battles to fight. And, if they're happy, that I guess we're happy, because if they're happy, we're happy. But at the end of the day, I just think the whole thing has gotten too casual.
Yeah.
Everything, even though customer service, clients texting and Facebooking them directly. And I think it's just gotten out of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Well, Frank, I can't thank you enough. Listen, I know how busy you are and how you're on the road all the time, and yet you took time away to be here with us. So I can't thank you enough, and for being with us here on Headcases. And I just wanted to say thank you. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on board.
Chris, the pleasure was mine. And by the way, I absolutely love the name Headcases.
Well, we've always said you have to be one in order to be in the business we're in, right?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for everything, man.
Thank you. I much appreciate it. And listen, for the listeners that are out there, is we really would appreciate from you if you like what you heard and you want to get involved in more and want to hear more, etc. If you want to show us some love and leave us a rating on the show so we can get more people involved, etc. We would really appreciate that. And my name is Chris Baran, and I want to thank you all for being here. And this is Headcases.